Hi everyone! Today we're talking about yet another MBTI pairing, and namely INTJ and ISTP. I started the series a few weeks ago and I've covered 2 other pairs so far, so feel free to check it out. And today we're going to dig a little bit deeper into this specific pairing, INTJ ISTP. I'm going to cover both positive aspects of these relationships and challenges, and perhaps also some ideas on how those could be overcome. So all about that in the next few minutes. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's dive in. All right, so INTJ and ISTP is a pair that perhaps is not the most common because none of these types are extremely common in the general population. And sometimes they might struggle to find each other since they are also not extremely common. However, I think it's a really interesting pair and there's a lot of potential to it. Since both of these types are introverted types, they are both thinkers, and they both use the NI-SE axis as a preference over NE and SI. This actually is quite helpful for both of these types in terms of communicating with each other and understanding each other. One of the greatest benefits, I would say, in a relationship like this is that both of these types can be quite socially introverted, and so needing quite a lot of space to think, to reflect, to process, to engage with their own interests. And they can give that to each other. I believe that their energy in this sense matches quite well, and they can be quite compatible in this sense because each of them can be in their own world, doing their own thing, taking enough space to think, to process, to do whatever interests them without disturbing each other too much or without feeling that the other person is neglecting them. And so this can be a great plus that can make them feel more understood. I feel like it's actually more common for both of these types to date feeler types, especially FE types. And so when they come together, it can actually be quite inspiring and quite special. Like, oh, there's actually someone who understands my need for solitude and who understands that I don't like to talk about my emotions so much, who has less expectations of me when it comes to that. And so we will find connection and we will find the ability to be comfortable with each other. At the same time, the fact that they are both operating on this NI-SE axis can be quite interesting for both of them to share because it can help them to connect intellectually and have quite a lot of topics in common to talk about. While INTJ is an NT type, so a rational temperament, ISTP is an artisan because of the SP preference. However, I believe that out of all of the SP types, ISTPs are the ones that sit a little bit closer to the NT group. And so a lot of ISTPs, especially those that are, for example, an Enneagram 5 or have a strong Enneagram 5 component in their tri-type, they share a lot of similarities with NTs in terms of the way they think about things, the way they do things, the way they communicate. And again, this can put these two people in a good position in terms of their ability to understand each other, communicate, and find intellectual stimulation. Generally, I've noticed that both INTJs and ISTPs really value intellectual stimulation, and in a romantic relationship they look for that a lot. It's important for them. It's something that brings them emotional satisfaction too, and so I think they can really give this to each other, and it can be a great plus of this relationship. Now, the challenges can be related to the feeling side, even though, like I said earlier, their similar attitude towards feelings sometimes can be helpful because they give each other space and it feels somehow that they're speaking the same language. At the same time, they might struggle to address their real feelings about stuff, especially when something goes wrong. So let's say that they have this topic that's a little bit behind the scenes, it's a little bit beneath the surface, and so they don't really fully address that. They might both struggle to really have that emotionally difficult conversation about a potential conflict, a potential piece that is a little bit misaligned, or about their real emotional needs. Because I feel like, on the one hand, both of these types could struggle with identifying their own needs, emotionally speaking, especially ISTPs, because of FI being so deep down in their unconscious. But INTJs are also not necessarily the best at it either, or it's not their preferred mode to be in. And so, because on the one hand, they have this difficulty in identifying what it is that they feel and need. They can also have a hard time communicating to each other. And they might be overly rational in their conversations about their feelings and their needs. And the real negative feelings can be beneath the surface, bubbling, bubbling, bubbling. And at some point, one of them or both of them could explode. When the feelings become too strong, too difficult to control, and the over-rationalization doesn't work anymore, they will potentially have quite a difficult conflict that could have a really negative impact on their relational dynamic. And so this is something important for both of these types to consider when they're dating each other, or perhaps other similar types, that it can be important to go a little bit out of their comfort zone and spend more time understanding where they're coming from, what they feel, what they need, and perhaps develop communication or conflict management skills, conflict resolution skills. Another part can also be related to the NI-SC differences, because even though they both operate on the same axis, INTJ is an NI hero type and ISTP is an SE parent type. And sometimes this preference can clash when, for example, the INTJ feels that they want to plan ahead, they want to make plans like, oh, what are we going to do 5 years from now or 10 years from now, or what do I want my long-term future to look like? And the ISTP might be a bit reluctant to do that, or it can be a little bit scary for them to think so much ahead of time. And so when it comes to things like commitment or building a life together or making important decisions about their future, the INTJ might be nervous in waiting too long to communicate about these things, and the ISTP can be quite resistant to planning so much ahead of time, which can cause another clash, another difficult point. And I think it's really important for both of them to be aware of this difference and work their way through that. Perhaps bring a little bit of a future focus, a bit more than the ISTP is comfortable with, but also tone down the expectation of the NI hero and accept that some other types also need to take things a little bit more slowly and connect more to the present moment and what's going on in the reality right now. Because long term, this can also be a great opportunity for growth, where an INTJ could learn to sometimes slow down on the planning and also make space for experience and change. And an ISTP can learn that, well, actually, about certain things, it is actually a great idea to plan ahead. It is actually a great idea to think ahead, to imagine what else is out there. And so the NI child in the ISTP can be inspired by the NI hero in the INTJ and can become a little bit more confident and balancing out the SC. And the inferior function of the INTJ can also receive a point of inspiration from the SC parent that can be, quite helpful, because it's not SC hero, it's not so in your face, it's more toned down, it has this parental energy. So the inferior function of the INTJ, that's already a trigger point or an insecurity for the INTJ, it can be parented a little bit by the SE parent function of the ISTP in growing slowly, taking its time. Yeah. So this can also be a great opportunity for growth. But like I said, it's really important that both of these types are aware of what's happening and why they might get triggered, why they might get into a conflict. An INTJ could perhaps potentially also feel that maybe the ISTP doesn't love them if they don't want to make long-term future plans, or they're not committed enough to the relationship, and they might make these assumptions because they're filtering things through their own NI, while the ISTP might actually not at all feel that way, but they might just be scared to make long-term plans in general about anything, not because they're not committed, but because they prefer to live a little bit more in the moment or in the short-term future. Similarly, an ISTP might feel that the INTJ doesn't give them space to take things in their own rhythm, and this can be really annoying and frustrating, especially because the T is also there to sometimes rush things or make things a bit more forceful than FE would do, for instance. So these are some important aspects to consider and look at when certain conflicts arise in such a relationship. Otherwise, I believe, like I said at the beginning, that such a pairing has quite a lot of potential for inspiring conversations and building something quite beautiful together. Okay, so these are my thoughts on the INTJ ISTP pairing. I'm going to continue making this series and explore many more other types. Also, for those of you who don't know yet, I am a professional coach accredited by the International Coaching Federation with a background in psychology and psychotherapy, and I offer coaching sessions aimed at helping individuals deepen their level of self-awareness and create a life on their own terms. So if that sounds interesting to you, feel free to check out the link in the description below. It will take you to my website and you can find out more. Otherwise, thank you so much for being with me. Thank you so much for watching this video, and see you next time with another video on typology.